Well, hello everyone and happy new year. Welcome to another episode of Teamwork a Better Way. I'm Christian Napier and I am joined by my focused, energetic, optimistic, looking forward to 2026 co-host Spencer Horn. Spencer, how you doing?
Good. I am so looking forward to 2026. It's going to be a fantastic year, isn't it?
It is. It's going to be a really, really good year. I got a good feeling about
Well, and,
2026.
and, and see, today we're going to learn how to seize that opportunity of making sure that it's a good year, which it starts off with, with our topic today. But anything fun you did for the New Year's holiday, Christian, that you were excited about?
You know what? We had family in town. Our daughter and her husband stayed with us over the holidays, and we just had a lot of family time. And it was really enjoyable. At the same time, admittedly exhausting when you're empty nesters and you only cook for two people, and then all of a sudden you have a house full of people for 2 weeks. It's like, wow, that was a lot of work, but it was totally worth it. Really, really enjoyed having family around. How about you?
Same. It's so funny because it does take a lot of work. But we just got back from Las Vegas, Jan and I, late last night. We went down to St. George over the weekend to watch grandkids and three granddaughters playing in tennis tournaments, and then yesterday we had a baby blessing, our newest grandson in Las Vegas. So that comes to number 10, and 11's on the way. 2026 going to be a great year.
Wow. Well, you're way ahead of me. We had two last year. That was our first two grandchildren. We've got two more on the way this year. So I've got a ways to
That's
catch up. I probably
awesome.
never will.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, let's get down to brass tacks here because we've got an amazing guest to kick off our new year. Super excited for you to introduce him, Spencer. Well, take it away.
Absolutely. Today we have Josh Kosnick coming all the way from Wisconsin, and who knows a good friend of mine, Darcy Luoma, and Darcy, has been on our show. And when she heard that Josh was going to come on, she was so excited. But the topic today is teamwork in Kairos time. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I know it's a Greek god, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But it's about unlocking peak performance through alignment and awareness. And I just want to bring the definition before I read Josh's bio, description of our show today. What if the best teams didn't just work together, they grew together? Drawing on this EOS leadership background and the Kairos code, Josh is going to explore how leaders can create these Kairos moments that we're talking about within their teams, pivotal points where awareness and accountability and action collide. So I am so excited about that. And let's share his bio so you understand where he's coming from. He's a bridge builder, a leader that's forged through fire, guided by faith. I love that, his little warrior ethos there. And as the founder of Kairos Coaching and an EOS implementer, he empowers individuals and organizations to align vision with execution, transforming struggles into stepping stones towards fulfillment. And he's had firsthand experience really building and exiting three successful businesses. Josh brings a unique perspective and has created sustainable value and long-term impact. And he's worked with masterminds that he manages and mentors other leaders. He inspires others to embrace their calling, overcome adversity, and build legacies rooted in authenticity, resilience, and generosity experience. So I'm so excited. He's also passionate about men's health. He's passionate about personal growth, and he helps people transform. So Christian, we're going to start our year off right and hopefully getting a lot of information to get us rocking and rolling in 2026. Welcome, Josh. We're so glad to have you.
Thanks, guys. Well, I got to say before we jump into this, two things. It is pronounced Kairos, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But you guys got a fertile bunch over there. Grandkids popping out everywhere. It's a fun time of fun season of life for you two.
Josh, so I have 5 children, and yes, fertile, I guess if you want to call that. But this will be in June this year. I'll have been married 40 years. Got married when I was 15.
June, what's the date?
June 20th.
We're June to my wife and I will be 18 years on June 21st.
Wow. Day after. Congratulations. What a wonderful thing. Families are a wonderful thing. To start us off, let's talk about this idea of Kairos. Those of you who are listening are not familiar with Greek mythology. There's actually 3 gods, Greek gods of time. Is that right?
There is, and I can't even remember them all, but Kairos
Kairos, which
is,
you'll describe Chronos and
yep,
Aeon. So Chronos
yep.
is chronological time, empirical time, past, present, future. Aeon is eternal time, so the afterlife. But the one that we're most interested in is Kairos time. First of all, why Kairos time? Tell us this idea. Where did it come from? And what is it? And how do leaders recognize it when Kairos time opportunities present themselves?
Really great question. So Kairos, I was first introduced to in 2021. I had just exited my business, and it wasn't a happy exit. And we can get into some of that story if it makes sense to. But remember 2021, we were just still kind of in that COVID era, and we are attached to our Zoom screens. We're attached to kind of isolating ourselves from other community and other family members and all that stuff. It was a weird 2 year period. And I get introduced to this term of Kairos when I was kind of in my pits of despair. And it was a fascinating term. So let me give the Greek definition to it. Kairos is a moment or era, a defining moment or era in one's life. And there's also a biblical definition to it, a divine moment when God acts. So I get introduced to this term and I'm like, man, we have been isolated. We have been put kind of in our own boxes. We're attached to these screens. And what a time to actually reclaim our sovereignty, to like reclaim who we are and actually tap back into what God gave us, which is the beauty of nature, the beauty of community and our families and friendships. And I decided to name my company that and have lived more in that time. Now, I want to make this other caveat because I think the most appropriate way to understand it right now is the zone or flow. Those are two popularized terms, whether it be in sports or business. And when you're in the zone or in flow, you have no concept of chronos time. You're not counting the clock. Time slows down, as a matter of fact. If you've ever been in the zone or flow, you're utterly immersed in the present. And I just thought, and have continued to dive deeper into that, is we've probably all heard the terminology or phrase or motto, be where your feet are. Kairos takes that to another level when we can actually be so present that we have no concept of time. We're not thinking about what we're going to say next. We're not thinking about the next thing we have to do. We're not thinking about another to do on our list, whatever it may be. We're just utterly present with our kids. We're utterly present in the conversation that we have. And we're just so focused on what's in front of our face instead of all the other to dos and demands on our schedule or our time.
Well, I there's a lot to unpack there, Josh. There's some really cool concepts there. Uh, I one of the ones that kind of caught my attention, the idea of this Kairos being in the zone, being present. You know, you use that sports analogy; it resonates with me. I've spent a lot of my career working in major sport events. One of the questions I have for you is when we see athletes in the zone, for example, uh, they it's not like they just wake up one morning and decide they're going to be in the zone, right? Uh, Musicians, similarly, I was reading an article the other day about musicians when when they uh, when they're in that kind of flow state themselves, they're not counting bars one, two, three, four. They just feel it, right? But to get there takes a lot of work for them, right? So I'm curious from your perspective, what do people have to do to get into that state? I mean, can you literally just wake up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to be in the zone today? Or do you have to do a lot of foundational work to get to that place where you feel like you are ever present, that you're living in that moment? What kind of legwork do you have to do ahead of time to be able to feel like you're in that flow, or can it just happen?
I think it can just happen. The problem is it's not going to be on purpose, and it's not going to happen nearly as often. So I've been blessed to have a couple people on my podcast that work with NBA stars, Drew Hanlon, David Nurse. They work with some of the best in the NBA. And I've asked them that question. I was like, hey, how do we get in the zone more? And both of them answered very similarly. They're like, Josh, that's the $1 billion question. If I had the answer to that, then every high level athlete would work with me, and we could solve a lot of the world's problems. So, how do we actually get there? We have to be so, we have to work so hard on ourselves and be so authentically grounded in who we are first to be that present in any moment. So, I created the 5 bridges of Kairos from a season of loss. When I told you in 2021 that was not a happy exit, I was in my pits of despair. And I realized I had gone about some priorities really wrong in my life. And partly being spiritually, I wasn't chasing God or a relationship with God as much as I was chasing my goals, the next promotion, the next accolade, whatever it may be. I wasn't pursuing my wife with the same passion that I was the next to do, the next goal, the next win. And I wasn't spending as much time and attention on my kids as I was my calendar. And when I had that epiphany, I was like, man, I'd screwed a lot of things up priority wise. And again, from the outside looking in, I had everything that everyone ever wanted. And when it all came crashing down, I have this just grounding epiphany that I had screwed some things up. And so I went to work on creating these 5 bridges and what it actually takes to live in Kairos time. So, bridge one is being spiritually grounded. You may believe in God, you may not, but you need to understand that we are spiritual beings because I believe we've all been to a funeral, a wake, a visitation, seen the body present and the spirit gone. So, we got to know that we're spiritual beings at first, and being grounded in that spirituality is bridge one for me. Bridge two is internal, meaning that we are mentally, emotionally, and physically strong. Very much like, Spencer, you said you were on a flight last night, I think, back from Vegas. Well, the flight attendants every time tell us put our oxygen mask on first before assisting others. Reason being, if we're passed out or dead, we can't assist others. We're no use to anyone. So being emotionally, mentally, and physically strong is the way to actually show up the best for others, your family, your employees, your coworkers, or whoever else means or needs you in that time frame. So getting those first 2 bridges right start to build that bridge towards more Kairos moments. But the third one is just as important as those first two. It's having really strong relationships, particularly with the people that you love the most. I see way too many entrepreneurs, way too many high achievers sacrificing those that they love the most for people that won't even show up to their funeral. They won't even care if they get sick, or a company that will replace them the next day if they were to die today. So relationships are the fruit of life, and we have to have those really in priority. So God first, yourself second, your spouse if you have one, your kids if you have them, and then everyone else. Relationships is bridge three. Bridge four is the one we all like to skip to. I call it environment, but it's really your professional, your financial, and your creative. And most people forget about creative and joy, but let's focus on professional and financial for a minute. We all get told or asked the question when we're kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then it's reinforced in high school. What are you going to go to college for? And then it's reinforced in college. What are you going to do with that degree? And it's all circling around the what and not the who. And we are so much more than our positions, our titles, our money, our accolades. But we all identify or fall into the trap of identifying with what we do. And when we lose that identity, our whole world comes crashing down. And I know this because I've experienced it. And then bridge five, if we get the first four right, is legacy. And the two things people get wrong about legacy all the time is they think it's 30 years from now. They're not going to die today, even though we know we're mortal, unlike the, Greek gods that we were talking about. We know we're mortal. We just don't think it's going to be today. We don't think it's going to be us. So therefore, we think legacy is sometime down the road. And then the second thing they get wrong is they think it's about things and what they leave behind. And that's not true either. So let me dispel both myths real quick. Legacy is what you leave in others, not what you leave behind. And you're building your legacy every single day. You're blessed to wake up through every action you take or inaction, action you don't take, and every conversation of impact that you have with another human being. So therefore, if we build more conscientiousness or just cognizance of that fact, we can start to build more Kairos time by getting these 5 bridges in order and being cognizant that our legacy is built every single day. And we got to have intention and purpose around how we want to leave an imprint on this world.
This is so important, Josh. I don't know if you're familiar with Harvard professor Clayton Christensen. Wrote one of my favorite books called "How Will You Measure Your Life?" But as he would bring in the MBA students into his programs, he's since passed, I don't know, what, 3-4 years, Christian.
It's a while, yeah.
Yeah, when he would bring in these new cohorts of MBA students that were always looking forward to, companies they were going to run and wealth that they were going to create, and these machinations of riches, and his whole focus was, my hope is exactly what you're talking about, that you will have a life that matters, that you will focus on family, that you will focus on relationships. And his idea of legacy, it lines perfectly with yours. And that is, he said, management is the greatest of all professions because it has the ability to impact more people for good than anything else. In other words, that's his whole thesis, is that it's our responsibility to leave a legacy, if you will, with those that we mentor and coach and teach. And that's what I'm hearing that is your bridges to Kairos. And I absolutely, I love them. How do we, somebody may be listening to this and say, well, that's great, but if entrepreneurs had the time, they would make time for those things that are important. I mean, how do you manage all of that? And there's a concept called Parkinson's law, right? And that is when you actually let's say you're planning on going on vacation tomorrow, it seems like you're more productive in the day before you go on vacation. Why can't we do that all the time? And what I'm hoping you're going to say is, when we make time for what really matters, the time that's left for us is actually more productive. I don't know how you're going to answer that, but how do you do it? Why is there a problem that you even have to coach people with this?
Well, you're spot on. And how many books do we need to read before we get the hint? And whether it's the 4-Hour Work Week, the Compound Effect, a couple of my favorite books, is you're absolutely right. If I got a flight at 1 p.m., how productive am I before noon? Extremely productive. And so is everyone else. My dad always taught me this growing up, is if you want something done, give it to a busy person. As a young person, that didn't make sense to me at all. I'm like, well, they're already busy. Why would you give it to them? Versus someone that doesn't have anything on their plate, give it to them and that'll fill their time. Well, as you grow and learn, and as my dad well evidenced for me, is that the busy person knows how to prioritize, knows how to make time to get things done. A not so busy person will take all the time necessary to get that thing done. And that's the thing. So some of these things people look at as like, I got to cram this into my day, cram this into my day, cram this into my day. I don't have time for that. And I would agree, all of us have the same clock, but the most highly productive people on the planet that you admire, that you revere, are getting all these things done. And what they're doing is time blocking or some other methodology that allows them to focus, whether it's a morning routine, whether it's maybe they shave off and say, okay, I look at my day in a few hour blocks where they go 6 to 10 is my first, 10 to 2 is my second, and 2 to 6 is my third. Is however you look at it, people are getting things done. So I created a field guide or planner or journal, if you will, that allows you to look at those 5 bridges and plot out your week in accordance. So for some people, the spiritual bridge or relationships bridge may not be an everyday thing, but it's a weekly thing, and they're put into their calendar. But I'll give one hack that's helped me over the last 20 years, probably more than other, especially as I became a father, is you put your want tos in your calendar before your have tos. Almost everyone gets this wrong and puts their have tos in their calendar first. The problem with that is that the have tos always bleed into the want tos if the want tos aren't on the calendar. So what are want tos? Date night with your spouse, being at your kid's sporting event, or in my case, I have dance competitions because I have three girls that are competitive dancers. Uh, or your workouts or your Bible study or whatever it may be. Those are want tos. You get those in your calendar first. So all of my important dates that I have on my want tos are in my calendar already this year. In fact, they were there late November. I had those schedules, whether it's spring break, the dance competitions, my son's sporting stuff that I wanted to be a part of. All of that's in the calendar first. Yep, your rocks. Your rocks go in first. That's
No,
right. As an
the
EOS
big
system, I'm like,
rocks are the want tos. Those are the important ones. The little ones are the have tos, right?
that's right. That's 100% right. Because if you reverse the order, the big rocks don't fit, right? So if you want to be a great husband or wife, if you want to be a great father or mother, those want tos, those big rocks have to go in the jar first. And so get those on your calendar first and treat them as sacred. Just like having that flight at 1 p.m., I promise you that you will get the have tos done because you know you have that want to coming later that evening or this weekend or whatever it may be. So you compress time and get everything done that you need to get done so that you can be the father, the husband, the wife, the mother that you want to be.
I love this. One of the questions that I have for you is about uh, work-life balance. We hear that term a lot. Oh, work-life balance, and um, you may have an alternative take on that, and I'm curious to hear what that take is because uh, that seems to be something that a lot of people struggle with, but maybe they're looking at it through the wrong frame.
Yeah. You want to know who I hear the work life balance from the most? The people that haven't earned the right to have work life balance. It's interesting. So, work life balance, I don't think exists only because it indicates 50-50. People think of the scales, right? The two golden scales or bronze scales, and they think, okay, 50-50. That's what work life balance means. That's never the case. And there will never be some magical day that you wake up and everything's 50-50. I'll just give an example from my own life. My girls I mentioned are competitive dancers. So they go to school and they leave the house at 7:30 a.m. And then post school, they're at dance till about 9:15 p.m. per night. So even if I wanted to have a balanced calendar and spend all the time with them as possible, that's just not possible. If I worked a normal 9 to 5, they're still gone till 9 p.m. at night. I don't get balanced with them. So my take has always been more about integration, harmony, maximization is I choose to pick them up from dance. I choose to have that 15 minutes, that ride home with them and have some meaningful dialogue and conversations with them and check in on their feelings and how they're doing and if I can be of service to them. Right. So there's little pockets of time of quality time that we can have that doesn't indicate balance. There will also be seasons of your life where you're extremely unbalanced and right, it's so let's say you're an entrepreneur and you're just building the business, you're not going to be balanced at all. You got to devote all your time and energy to building that machine. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. And so that is a completely unbalanced life at that point. However, if you build that machine and build the dream, there can become some more balance, or maybe the pendulum swings back the other way where you have more time freedom that you can spend with your family. Let's say you get sick or your spouse gets sick, all your attention goes to that. That's not balance, right?
No,
So there's seasons of life where we have to figure out. So I think like we could use the words integration, harmony. I think probably the best terminology is counterbalance. Is how do I counterbalance when things feel a little bit off, or when I need to make a pivot, or I need to devote that time or that special time to my spouse who's sick or to my business that needs attention. But here's the key, guys: communication. If you are married, if you have relationships in your life that matter to you, if you got to go into a season of hard work, let's say it's travel, or you're going to be working 14-hour days and you're going to be a little bit more disconnected because you got this big project, communicating up front and understanding the trade-offs that are going to happen will help you save your marriage.
Josh, such great advice. Right now, I'm in a season of life where my wife and I are empty nesters, right? And she's my business partner, and we travel the world. 80% of the time, she travels with me when I travel, and I'm headed to Doha here, Christian, shortly. She won't be coming on that one because I'm going to be totally focused on the client, but she'll come the other times, and so many people look at that and like, oh, what a wonderful life. They have no idea how hard we worked, how hard she sacrificed. The kids, the raising of the kids, the total out of balance. My oldest daughter just had her fifth child, and we were going to have a big Christmas get together. And she just got back from the doctor saying, the baby wasn't responding well to, breastfeeding. Everything changes. Every focus goes to that child. And so you reorient your time, your energy. And guess what? We didn't get to have them for Christmas. But, it's been 3 months since we've seen our brand new baby grandson. When we were out of the country and all these things happened. And you know what? With the time that we had this last weekend was just magic. You can't, you just, I talk about what this psychologically does to you when you have this mindset that I deserve this certain balance. What does it do to you when you haven't earned it and you think you deserve it?
Yeah, it's that's a great question, and I'm glad you called it out because we a lot of us live in this world of we think we deserve something, we think we're owed something, and that's just not how the universe works. And that's a big part of what's going wrong with parenting nowadays. I'm on the opposite end of you guys. I got 14, 12, 10, and 8, so I'm in the mix of a busy season
This
with
is the
kids in the
best
house.
time of life. Just savor every moment of it. It's awesome.
I'm trying my best, but yeah,
It will go
we get
so fast. I promise. Blink and it's over.
yeah. I got great advice from a longtime coach and mentor that said, when we had our firstborn, said, Josh, the days are long, but the years are short, and I've never forgot it. And now that I have a teenager, I can totally appreciate it. So the point of this is like, what do you actually deserve? What do you actually are owed is all through results. It's all how you create your life. So often we're looking at it from what society creates as rules or whatever it may be. I read this book last year, and I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head, but he called them rules, bullshit rules that were passed down from generation to generation. And I thought it was a great term, right? Rules. So now I've used that as well as this bullshit rule. Like, what do we need to unlearn about society and ourselves to create the life that we want? Not what others want for us, not what we think we should have. We got to earn every step, everything that we get in our lives. So that's why I said I started out this topic with most of the people that talk about work-life balance are the ones that don't deserve it because they haven't worked for anything to earn that time freedom. So what I see though is a lot of guilt and shame cycle. And it's really harmful to your psyche. It's really harmful to your relationships. It's really harmful to production and results by falling into that cycle. So you got to determine the rules for your life. You got to determine what you want and determine how you want to live your life, not other people's way of living, not Instagram's way of telling you got to do this or the perfect morning routine or whatever. It's your life, and you only got one shot at it. So you better get it right and do it your way. So the guilt and shame cycle, real quick. Most of the time, here's what I see is people don't do what they know they should do during their working hours. Then they go home feeling guilty and shameful about not getting done what they know they need to get done. And, aren't present as a husband, or wife or aren't present as a mother or father. And then they go back to work the next day and they're guilty and shameful about not being present at home. And they just end up in this spin cycle of guilt and shame. And there's one, I won't say easy, I'm going to say simple, one simple way out of it. Do exactly what you know you need to do at work and do exactly what you know you need to do at home, and just continue to execute over and over again, repetitiously, to build the life that you want.
Love this advice. We've talked a lot, Josh, about uh, really focusing on this Kairos, which seems like it could be an individual pursuit. Like we're trying to uh, live a fulfilling, joyful life. Now, our podcast is focused on teamwork, right? Which is okay. I can work on myself, but in my organization, whether that be my family organization, my spouse, children, etc., or whether it's my professional organization or work organization, how do we extend this work so that our teams are aligned and our teams are experiencing this or realizing this Kairos approach?
Well, it's a good pivot, Christian, because whether it was on purpose or not, starting with the individual is the path to a better team, right? So we started talking about individual and how to, get better as a human being with this conversation thus far. But that is the path to being a better teammate. Because how often have we stepped into a work meeting, whether it's a leadership team table, whether it's a all team hands on deck meeting, and we've sensed passive aggressive behavior, or we've felt too domineering of a boss, my way or the highway, and not allowing the team to input. Most of the time, that's from an individual not working hard enough on themselves, not being truly grounded in authenticity, and possibly not unlearning some bad habits that they were taught. So, working on yourself as hard as possible, and everyone in your organization working harder on themselves than they do on their jobs, leads to a better team. Now, that being said, how can we get more Kairos in our teams? Starting with everyone being truly whole in themselves and authentic, and continuing to work as a team to get better individually. So many of my teams will do book clubs where they're continually doing individual work, extracting the lessons from whether it's that book or that lesson that they're passing out on that month, coming back together, and how did that impact them so they can be a better teammate as an individual sovereign human being, and what can they bring to the table as a teammate. Now, that being said, as we get together as a team, one of the key traits that I've done in my organizations, and I have taught with many of my coaching clients, is what are the rules, the navigating rules that we're going to have for our team. So one of the rules that comes up often in teams is that, hey, we can argue in this room behind closed doors, but once we leave these doors, we're a unified front. We speak our truth, right? We get to the core root of the issue. We solve that issue at its root, not just the symptoms, because that's what too many teams do. If we're going to have a highly effective team, we need to solve the root cause and not these ancillary symptoms that we keep popping up and keep addressing. Like no talking behind each other's back, no three-way conversations. These are just some of the examples that come up, and creating a rules of engagement for your teams. And when you guys are all buying into that as a team, the Kairos moments happen because you know that you're working together as collective individuals that have the best heart of the best interests and heart of the organization or the team that you're leading or working with. What I like to say with that is, like, we're harder on the problem than we are on each other. We're focused on what is right, not who is right. And that's, if you have those key metrics and key rules of engagement in force, we can really come together as a team, because we all have the same mindset of constant and never ending improvement. We're not going to beat each other up for saying something, wacky or out of line. And uh, and we really keep focused on what is the mission at hand, so that we can come together and really enjoy the work that we're doing. The teams that do this, they're not only more cohesive and functional, they have a ton more fun.
Um, Josh, I do a lot of professional speaking, and I talk about this topic where I bring in this idea of F1 racing, and where I'm talking about strengths, your engine, and then drag being those weaknesses that hold you back. But um, because I talk about this. I watched this movie just a couple days ago called F1. I don't know if you've seen it, with Brad
I haven't
Pitt.
seen it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole concept comes down to kind of what we're talking about. Anyway, this older race car driver, in a moment of vulnerability, somebody asked him, "What is it that you really want?" He's like, "I want this moment that I've experienced where time stops, basically, right? Your heartbeat slows down and everything is just present at once." It's kind of what we're talking about, right? This Kairos time.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd been chasing that as an individual pursuit in all these different races. And it wasn't until he found a team that experience returned to him.
Yeah.
And it's a movie, Christian, I think, but it's a metaphor for what we're talking about, which I think the team can really help facilitate those individual Kairos moments that you're talking about. Sorry, I just didn't want to get cheesy here. Go Sonny Hayes, old race car guy. But how do you? Because I know you do a lot of EOS, which is great for business systems, and so I imagine you work with some sales teams as well.
Yeah.
Sales teams are really tricky because in many respects you're competing with each other on a team. How do you create an environment where your teammate is actually trying to beat you? I mean, how do you create this esprit de corps, these Kairos moments when we're trying to incentivize people to work together at the same time, outperform each other? Does that make sense? Am I
Yeah.
making sense?
Total sense. So my last business, I ran a financial firm. I had 250 employees, 115 advisors. They were all, in essence, competing against each other in the marketplace. But we had a really cohesive team. So one of the things that people get wrong about competition is, for highly competitive people, and I am one of those, you want to crush your competition. But at the same point, your competition makes you better. So you have a healthy respect for them. Like, I always want people to compete with me, to run with me, to be highly competitive, and they're always seeking to get better themselves, because that pushes me to get better. And so if we're just the best, that's part of the thing, is like, we've all heard, you want to be the dumbest person in the room, because if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And that's very similar in a competitive environment like sales. Is you want to beat your competition because you want to be the best. That's what a competitive fire or spirit is. But at the same point, if you're just blowing past your competition all the time, and no one's challenging you to get better, and you can just continue doing what you're doing, you're not growing. You're stuck, and eventually that'll fall off. Like, business is the most competitive. It doesn't. You can name a sport. Business is more competitive. But, like, there's no questions about it. It's the most competitive market out there, competitive sport out there. So in the spirit of having a healthy respect for your competition, at the same time trying to be the best, I think, is the pinnacle that we can get to. Is so we would have many network days, group days, leadership days, where we would get these high achieving advisors together to grow together. They're hearing the same speakers, they're hearing the same messages. How they take those and how they implement them is on them. We would have celebratory dinners, year-end awards banquets, stuff of that nature. People were competing for that top spot, all that different stuff. At the same point, we're having a healthy respect for the work that we do. I think one of the early inclinations that people need to get, and for some people it comes earlier than others, but you are not for everyone. So when I looked at an advisor across my office, when I was an advisor and not the owner of the firm, I would be like, man, that dude's kind of an odd duck. That being said, he found his tribe. Like he found his people and clients that would prefer to work with him being the odd duck than me being the cool macho guy or whatever you want to frame me as. But it's interesting. Everyone is going to communicate a little bit differently. Everyone has their own personality and authenticity, and your clients are going to be attracted to you or someone else based on that authenticity, based on that personality. It's based on your character. It's really an interesting dichotomy. I think too many people get caught up in the competition and not thinking of their competition as a way to continue to grow.
I really, really love that approach. It resonates with me. As you were talking there, Josh, I was thinking kind of back to the sports metaphor. You talked about working with people who work with, National Basketball Association athletes and so on and so forth. And there are different roles that need to be played on a team, and the same thing kind of happens in organizations. And sometimes it means that uh, I'm in a role that maybe I don't want to be, or I think I should be in a different role. Everybody wants to be, okay, I want to be well, not everybody wants to, but a lot of people that are competitive want to be, the number one option on the team, but maybe they're going to be number two or number three option. And uh, if you're not careful, that can lead to some damaging things, So uh, competition can be healthy. Comparison can be damaging if you uh, either use it as a way to position yourself like I'm better than everybody else here, or uh, I can't keep up, I'm drowning.
That's enmity, right?
Right. So how, and I'm guessing the Kairos thing can help you see people for who they are, and not as objects to be better than or worse than. I'm just curious how you navigate the mindset um, of valuing human beings, while at the same time trying to push this competitive edge and keep it healthy, so that it's not unhealthy for you or for the team.
Yeah, it's a really tough dichotomy, Christian. That being said, you can get there through maturity and understanding. I'll give an example. There was an advisor in my office, happened to be a female. She was a few years ahead of me when I came in the business, and we really didn't like each other. Our personalities just kind of clashed. And she was a few years ahead of me, so she was beating me in a bunch of metrics, and I wanted to beat her competitive wise, and again because we didn't really see eye to eye. So I had to look at what she was doing better than me to be able to have an objective view on how I could beat her. Well, one of the things she was doing better than me is she was keeping about 80 meetings a month. And on average, I was keeping about 60, 65. So that being said, just on sheer volume and activity, she had a leg up on me. So there's only two ways for me to beat that. I had to see better clientele and keep the same number of meetings that I was keeping, or I had to increase my activity and keep more meetings and more on average than her. So there's a couple ways to go about that. But even though we didn't necessarily like each other and we wanted to beat each other on a competitive speed, I had a very healthy respect for her work ethic, her drive, and her want to continue to be the best. And so there's a way, and that came through maturity. That's why I brought that word up, because I started as an entrepreneur when I was 24 years old, when I was not mature at that point. So you grow with that and understand that humans are all doing the best for the most part. We know there's some evil people out there, but humans are doing the best they can with what they know. They were, born into this world. Their parents, I also believe this about parents. Most parents do the very best they can with what they know. Some parents do it better because they continue to seek to evolve and learn and grow, or unlearn some of those rules they were taught from their parents and break those generational curses. But most people are trying to do the best they can. Once you have a healthy appreciation for humans as a whole, and still like the maturity and the respect kind of ticks upwards. Now you can still want to be the best and still want to beat them, and that's on you. But you got to do it morally, ethically, and really keep the humanity of the whole situation in the center of your heart instead of just a competitive fire. I read this great book, maybe you guys have as well, Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Shamin, and he rates how much your upper brain versus your lower brain is working for you. And the upper brain being the wise one, and the lower brain being the judge and kind of the dementor in your life. And beautiful articulation, great book. That assessment is on a 0 to 100 scale. You want to rate 75 or above to say that your brain is working for you versus against you. But then he has another assessment, and they're both free, by the way, on his website, where he lists the 9 saboteurs. Well, my number one saboteur is hyper competitive. So I'm a very, I mean, I played college football, I played sports all my life. I'm very competitive. Competitive in and of itself is not a bad thing. Hyper competitive, when you're only placing your worth on winning, hitting goals, stuff of that nature, can be very detrimental to your psyche, and also to your relationships. So I think that's a great starting point for people to understand where their saboteurs are, and understand if their brain's working for them and versus against them, and really start to move forward in their own emotional and brain intelligence to continue to strive to be better.
Josh, you talked about how you had this defining moment in 2021, a moment of difficulty that caused you to transition into these and developing these 5 bridges. Can you, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here. Can you share an example? Here's another transition of the work that you've done with a client where they were in a struggle and used these stepping stones to transition to a better place.
Yeah, I've worked with, been a privileged to work with some professional athletes, NFL, and I've been privileged to work with some business owners that have exited happily. But in both of those instances, they lost their identity, at least what they thought was their identity. Uh, Professional football player, they get a lot of notoriety, they get a lot of accolades, they're on TV, people know them on social media, all the different stuff. They knew them as the football player. And when they retire, or they can no longer go on because of injury or whatever it may be, they lose that identity. And now who are they? Or take the business owner that sells the business, makes millions of dollars, and they're in charge of however many hundreds of people. And all of a sudden, the next day they wake up and, okay, what do I do now? I hit the pinnacle. I did the thing. I sold the business. And that identity gets just completely erased. And what we got to understand is that our identity isn't rooted in what we do. That's just a piece of it. It's just a piece of the puzzle. I'll just use myself as an example. I'm a child of God. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm an athlete. I'm a great leader. Like, all these things comprise who we are. So once I start working through them with the bridges, spiritual, internal relationships, uh, environment, and legacy, we start to build that muscle of more of who we are, and then also a clear purpose on what we do, or what impact we want to have, or anything of that nature. So the bridges work for anyone. But that's why I want to get to people before they have that identity loss, before they have that big transition in their life, so that we can actually work these bridges and help them understand that they are so much more, so much depth to them as a human than just what they do. I mean, if you guys think about it, just go to any networking event, and the first question out of anyone's mouth is, what do you do? As if that's totally defines us as a human. or it's a measuring stick as to, is this person worth me talking to them? I would much prefer, like, tell me your story. I would much prefer, because then that leaves them up to interpretation of what story do they want to tell. I would say, I would ask a question. So some people hate me at a networking function because I don't do surface level, but I would like to ask the question, what's the most difficult thing about being you right now? And finding some depth to that person that's beyond their title.
Well, gosh, we blink and an hour has gone by almost here, Josh. This has been really, really fascinating conversation, and I appreciate you joining us. Before we get to Spencer's lightning round, a final question from me, uh, and that is, uh, on the one hand, we you can use this proactively, right? This Kairos code to orient your life, to figure out how to focus on who you are as opposed to what you do. Um, but sometimes we just have to learn lessons the hard way. I mean, that's uh, it is part of life. Um, and it can get us to a place where we are ready, we're emotionally ready, like, okay, fine, i i've been you know I've been kicking against the pricks, to use
Biblical
a
term.
biblical term, long enough, and I'm suffering the consequences. And so I'm curious, uh, how is it, yeah, you'd like to prevent bad things from happening, and you like to be proactive and focus on it, but how many people do you interact with who the reason that they're reaching out to you is like, I'm having the identity crisis now. Like, okay, I have retired from football and I really don't know who I am, and I'm experiencing the crisis now. And that and because they're in the crisis, they are mentally and emotionally vulnerable enough
Prepared now.
to transition to something else, as opposed to, yeah, I want to be proactive about it. I mean, what are you seeing out there in the work that you're doing with your clients? Um, are they reaching out to you because they are in the midst of that identity crisis, or are they trying to be proactive? And what advice would you give to people to perhaps not wait until you're
Yeah.
in that moment of crisis? Get this figured out now.
Yeah. I would say it's about half and half, Christian. The identity crisis slaps us in the face, right? It's a kick in the gut, punch in the face, whatever you want to say. That's the moment people realize they need help. The other half, I think there's quite a bit of society that's figured out that the rules that we've adapted, the societal pressures and norms that we've adapted, at least here in America, aren't working for them. And they're searching for a different way. And so I would say that other half is really exciting to me, because some of them are even younger than you guys, than me, that are actually searching for that. They're like, you know what? The way my parents did this, the way I've been doing this isn't working for me. And I'm looking for a different way to build my life and leave the legacy that I want to leave. So I think if this has piqued anyone's curiosity and how to build these bridges earlier than going through the crisis, uh, man, I'd love to have a conversation, because that's where I really thrive in helping people hopefully avoid some of the mistakes and pitfalls that I've made. And but on the other hand, my business got ripped away from me in 2021, and although it was a lucrative sale, that was my what I thought was my purpose, and that was going to be what I was going to do till much later in my life. God had different plans. Now you have two choices when something bad like that happens, whether it's divorce, loss of a loved one, business getting ripped away from you. You're not getting through this life unscathed. So something's going to happen. But you have two choices. You can play the victim, or you can search for meaning in the crisis. And I've always searched for that meaning. Life often, we let it either happen to us or for us. So I'm always one that's like, don't waste the crisis, don't waste the hardship. God's pain is, or God's purpose is sometimes packaged in pain. So let's figure out what that purpose is, what the reason we're going through this, why this happened for us, and live into that.
Awesome. Spencer, we got 5 minutes.
Okay, ready?
We got to wrap it up.
These are really short questions with one word or short answers, all right?
You got it.
Okay, Kairos in one word.
Presence.
Best leadership habit you've adopted.
Oh, there's a lot. I'm just going to say lead by example.
You've already mentioned one book, but a book that changed your mindset.
I'm going to give you the best book that I've read in the last couple of years, and that's Unreasonable Hospitality.
Thank you. Biggest myth about high performance.
That it's about effort all the time in the grind versus thinking smarter, not just working harder.
Faith means
Belief in something that you can't control, that you can't prove.
your favorite EOS tool or principle.
Delegate and elevate.
Your personal Kairos moment.
The birth of all my kids.
What makes a team truly elite?
That they're vulnerable enough to solve the root causes, even when it involves their own wrongdoings.
Coffee-fueled mornings or a slow start?
I always have coffee in the morning, but I wait 2 hours to let my body wake up. I'm very into health and fitness, so I know that I need that time for my brain and body to wake up before I caffeinate.
What do you tell someone who's about to give up?
This too shall pass. Keep going.
All right, Christian, that's it.
Wow. Well, Josh, this has been a fascinating conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. You are our first guest of the new year of 2026, and we're bringing you in with a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I learned a lot here. If people want to learn more about how you can help them, if they want to learn more about the Kairos Code, where they can go buy your book, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, for the book, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere you find books. Would love for you to pick that up. I poured my heart and soul into that, and I'm just sharing from the journey and not trying to be an expert in anything. But you can find me at Josh Kosnick on all social media. The one thing I'll give your audience that's been really impactful is we created a free assessment to go along with the Kairos Code. So you go to joshkosnick.com/assessment. It will give you a totality score on your 5 bridges, and then it'll break your 5 bridges down and give you a score for each of the 5 bridges. So it's meant to take over and over again. So as you continue to work on these things, as you progress, you should retake the assessment and see how you've progressed. So I would highly encourage everyone to do that.
That is awesome. We'll put that in the show notes.
Absolutely. We'll get those links in the show notes for sure. I actually want to go hop on and take that assessment myself.
It's
really
84
curious.
questions, but the average person takes it in 6 minutes. So you should be good.
Awesome. Spencer, you've been helping organizations build high-performing teams for decades. How can people reach out and contact you?
Best way, say hey on LinkedIn, like many of you do. I thank you for that. That's a great way to contact me. And Christian, you too. Isn't he great, Josh? Great questions. I just love having my co-host. He's so smart and thoughtful, and I love people to get to know him. So how can people get to hold of you, Christian?
LinkedIn is easy. Just look up Christian Napier on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with folks there. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Again, thank you, Josh, for the time. We really appreciate it, and listeners and viewers, we're grateful for you too. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. We'll catch you again soon.